track has fundamentally just been a foundation towards just how I work and how I think generally. And the one thing that's beautiful about track is, well, first and foremost, you have to have some God-given talent to be even able to step on the track and perform at a certain level. But outside of that, really what you put into it is what you get out of it. So you can't expect to enter into a competition and in a field of many other competitors who also have God-given abilities, some slightly better than others, think that you're able to win if during the entire season you haven't been putting the work on the track, in the weight room, thinking about diet, and thinking about the mental aspect of what it means to actually show up when it counts.
Right.
And you think about that as it relates to life in general or work, especially venture capital, in my opinion. Really what you put into it is what you get out of it.
All right.
Let's do this.
Thanks for joining me.
Yeah, my pleasure, my pleasure.
Let's start from the top.
Cool.
Tell me about Upfront.
We're a venture capital fund based here in Santa Monica. He's picked me up from there. And we've been around since, late 90s. I joined crazy 8 years ago.
Oh,
Happened via a mutual investment that I made while at Accel Partners.
Okay.
Where is first time I actually got to know the team, and my now partner Mark Suster made an investment in a company called Invoca based in Santa Barbara.
Right.
And found myself then on another board with Mark, a company called Osmo, which was also an Accel company that I invested in. And from there I got to know the squad pretty well, and decided, given the opportunity, to change things up and move back down to Southern California and join the team. But we focus mainly on B2B software, do a little bit of consumer.
Okay.
We also are deep now in the last couple of years in the world of aerospace and defense, which is a lot of action going on here in Los Angeles.
Yep.
Do a bit of life sciences, bio, gaming infrastructure, fintech, so pretty agnostic with regards to where we're spending time. It's mostly kind of B2B is where we focus in on.
Yeah. Now, was the fund typically kind of a thesis around LA and the greater LA area and kind of the talent and entertainment and aerospace? Was that?
Less on that entertainment sort of aspect in terms of what's LA, but there's just a lot of energy, a lot of engineering talent that you see here in the Southern California region.
Mm-hmm.
And, our overall model is that we want to definitely make sure that we are investing in the absolute best founders here in Los Angeles. It's over-indexed in certain areas, happens to be in aerospace and defense. We're seeing a lot of that right now. And so you'll find that roughly 60% of our deals will be in Southern California area, and from there on it kind of spreads into the main areas you find, like San Francisco, New York, and other regions. But LA really is our backyard where we spend most of our time investing.
And why venture for you? You could do anything. Venture's really hard.
I don't know if I could do anything. So.
Well, you could do a lot of things. Put it that way.
Well,
venture's super hard. It's not an easy thing.
Yeah, no, I mean, so I grew up, one of the things I wanted to do was play basketball. That didn't work out for me. I got cut from my freshman high school team. So
isn't that the model though? Then you were supposed to turn into Michael Jordan.
Yeah, exactly. So didn't work so well, and so I can't do anything. But I guess I got first exposed to venture capital doing a startup in college that was at the intersection of actually sports and technology. It was a soccer startup, and it was one where I didn't even like soccer, but one of my buddies who was on the track team with me, track was a huge part of my life, had an idea around using the internet to connect soccer players with recruiters, and we ended up starting this what became an online soccer portal, raised a few $1 million of angel capital for, ended up being one of the highest traffic soccer sites online during the time. This is during the 99, 2000 era. And we could have sold for a good amount of money, but we didn't, so we're dumb kids, and it went to zero. But it was trying to raise VC dollars where I first got exposed to what the asset class, was. And I was just totally floored that, wow, there's a profession where someone can come spend time meeting founders and then have the ability to invest in them, sit on their boards, and be a part of the journey from the angle of an investor board member. And it just naturally appealed to me. And the ability to actually be able to spend time with multiple different companies and not just be concentrated in one, and be able to work with different founders chasing after different dreams, I just got super excited about. So I just found a way to navigate into the industry after was years of the time sending out physical letters to Boston-based venture capital funds. That's where I'm from, trying to get an opportunity. No one ever replied back. But yeah, one of my good friends joined a firm out of New York called Accel Venture Partners straight out of school, and I was able to hear a bit about his experience, and it felt like a natural fit relative to what I wanted to do. And at the time I was doing investment banking and was able to meet with the team, and from there, the rest was history. Joined on as a wee old little analyst cold calling software companies, and here I am right now driving on the PCH with you.
Well, that's funny. There's a lot of similarities time-wise and probably interest-wise. Like, I graduated in the mid to late 90s .com boom. I actually graduated with a finance and entrepreneurship degree, which makes a lot of sense looking back, because I'm all about capital efficiency. That's what I do with companies, right? Yeah. So having those two sides, but it was the .com boom, and I kind of got the finance just because I thought, if I needed a job, like, who's going to hire me? I got an entrepreneurship degree, which was really rare back then. You know? It sounds like you were raising capital right around probably the worst time. It's 2000.
That's why
the bust.
That's why we didn't raise capital, and it folded. So it didn't work out so well.
Yeah, that was a really tough time. I look back and I thought about, should I go on the investing side or should I stay on the entrepreneurial side? I stayed on the entrepreneurial side up until 2004, where I started a company to help entrepreneurs. And so I think I kind of went that route. But it's interesting. It's that time frame, and that I also feel the same kind of pull towards helping many versus working in one business. And I think looking back, I didn't think investors had as much ability to help founders back then. Okay. I think typically the investors that you saw back then would just invest. I think they were...
Well, some now still do that too. So I don't know if it's ever changed. So depends on the investor.
That is true. I feel like more and more it's become more competitive, and they're trying to find other ways that they can kind of differentiate themselves and provide that. But maybe investors should just invest. I don't know. That's a good topic on its own. Being in the industry as long as you have, like, what have you seen that's changed, and what have you seen that has not changed?
Yeah, I mean, a lot has changed. Think about just even the firm that I joined back in 2004, Accel Venture Partners. I joined Insight when they're on their fourth fund, $740 million fund. I don't know what fund they're on right now, but the last one was $20 billion. And so just in terms of the size of the asset class, totally different. And so when I was at the time cold calling software companies, because literally I would pick up the phone and do 100 cold calls a week, trying to find founders that at the time was mainly bootstrap founders, which we were looking for, founders that haven't really spent that much money and haven't raised that much capital. And you would be trying to beg them to take your call. It was like you had this bag of cash that you were selling. And the interesting thing, though, there wasn't so many people that were in roles like mine that were selling cash. And it was a totally different competitive dynamic in terms of the number of other investors that are going out there trying to source and invest either in early stage deals or late stage growth equity type transactions. And you fast forward to where it is right now, the asset class is just ballooned, and if you're a talented founder, you have plenty of options with regards to where you can actually take capital from. So that's why things with regards to being able to add value show up differentiate yourself with regards to some of these operational support platforms. If you're a firm, being able to have a track record or ability to help founders hire and just get their next set of customer contracts. Like, these are things that you need to do to differentiate, on top of being able to have different sort of lethal areas of focus with regards to where you know and have domain expertise. And those were things where at the time it just wasn't nearly the case in terms of what you were going up against with regards to competition. Right. I mean, the type of transactions we were doing, there were things where you were structuring participating preferred securities, like that happening right now, or maybe it's happening right now a little bit more based on kind of how the climate is for fundraising.
Yeah.
But it was just dramatically different.
Yeah. I think the founders were different too. Like you said, I think back at that time, there was a lot of bootstrap founders. They weren't thinking the venture capital route. A lot of those businesses came out of being a consulting company developing software. They did it for a couple clients and they found something that worked. Where today, people are starting with an idea. They haven't built something yet, oftentimes at the very earliest stages. And they're jumping in looking for venture capital right away. I think there's probably a lot more of that. I think the founders probably have changed.
Yeah, there's a lot more of that, though. My suspicions is that we're going to see some of that come back as well in terms of founders trying to more bootstrap, because they realize that trying to raise outside capital is harder than what it was in the last few years. That plus the way in which you can be hyper efficient leveraging AI to accomplish tasks for you. I think we're going to see probably a resurgence of more efficient business models and founders that are more just think differently in regards to how they're going to get their business going and run long term.
Right. You can do a lot more with a lot less today. And I actually, that's interesting because I know a bunch of people that have taken the route of being consultants around AI right now. Mm-hmm. And those are the people that are building things, right? And those are going to be that resurgence of those people, I think, that are going to come out with products.
Yep.
The one thing about AI that I think is really interesting, I was kind of jumping to this a little bit quicker than I wanted to, but like...
You always come back to AI. All right, okay. Jump to AI.
But I think the difference is when I was doing what we call handheld mobile technology in 97, like I could assume that we'd eventually put this software on a phone. We're going to be able to, Google things on a phone, like ask questions, things like that. Back in 97, 98, like the products that we're building were on the Palm 1. Right, and it was like, how did we find connectivity for this rugged device that was monochrome, and you could kind of see where it was going. I think with AI, I think it's a lot different. I think it's hard for us to predict what things will be like in the future.
1000%. I mean, I don't think any of us, if you rewind back 12, 18 months ago, would ever have thought that the capabilities that you have in your pocket or on your computer with GPT-4.0 or Claude 3.5 Sonnet, it's just insane.
Right.
And it's because these foundational models that the likes of OpenAI and Anthropic and others have just given to everyone at incredibly low cost, in some cases free, that allows us to tap into general intelligence to complete tasks and do, advanced coding and things like that is just mind-boggling. And if you just look at the trend line with regards to capabilities of 3.5 and 3.5 to 4, what it's able to do, think about what 5 is going to do, what 6 is going to do. People are pretty much saying, or at least some people are saying, that by the year 2027, 2028, we may fully be at AGI, and once we get to 2030, we may now be in the world of superhuman intelligence.
Right.
Which is kind of crazy. It's hard to actually fully understand what superhuman intelligence actually means. Because if you have an AI that's 1,000 times smarter than a PhD, like what does that mean? Like what I don't think our brains are able to comprehend what 1,000x smarter than the smartest human being on the planet actually means in practice. And it's kind of scary when you think about once automation gets to the level where it's automating AI research, like that's going to get wild. Like the advancements that we're going to see in terms of everything is going to reach this scale that our brains can't comprehend. And what's exciting about that is what it potentially could do to humanity in terms of cellular therapeutics, lifespan, health span lengthening, and the like. But then there's always a dark side when you think about AI. Like, what can that do as it relates to it being harnessed as a weapon, and that type of intelligence being put in the wrong hands, and who the hell knows? So when we think about forecasting out the next several years, what will this world look like? I don't think any of us know.
Well, I think it's because we're thinking about trying to enter the space of thinking beyond what humans can understand.
Yes.
And that's exactly what the technology is going to be doing. So I think that's hard for people to perceive.
Yeah, I don't know. Where it all goes, who knows? Part of me suspects is that it may get so out of hand where part of the population tries to just siphon themselves off from the rest of society and go into primitive human mode, and really enjoy the aspects of being truly human, while others embrace what eventually could just be like the singularity, which, God, I don't even know what that's going to be like.
All right, let's back up. I do have questions around high performance.
Okay.
And I'm really interested to talk to you about this. So I know your background in athletics and track. I believe you ran track professionally. How has that experience impacted your work experience?
So track has fundamentally just been a foundation towards just how I work and how I think generally.
Yeah.
And the one thing that's beautiful about track is, well, first and foremost, you have to have some God-given talent to be even able to step on the track and perform at a certain level. But outside of that, really what you put into it is what you get out of it. So you can't expect to enter into a competition and in a field of many other competitors who also have God-given abilities, some slightly better than others, think that you're able to win if during the entire season you haven't been putting the work on the track, in the weight room, thinking about diet, and thinking about the mental aspect of what it means to actually show up when it counts.
Right.
And you think about that as it relates to life in general, or work, especially venture capital, in my opinion. Really what you put into it is what you get out of it.
Mm-hmm.
When I started out at Insight, a lot of the job was very similar to a sales job. It's all about numbers, cold calling companies, but you're doing it usually in some directed fashion. So you have a thesis around, say, a category like hosted application software, now known as SaaS, but it was called ASP when I was investing. I was dating myself. You're like, you said the Palm One, I'm saying ASP, we're old geezers. And I had a thesis around that software is moving on-prem into hosted, and started looking into different departments by which this would have a fundamental impact on the way they operated. It happened to pick the marketing department. Cold called hundreds and hundreds of companies across different facets of marketing. It happened to think about this whole area of communication and email, and was able to stumble upon a little company in Indianapolis called Exact Target that cold called Scott Dorsey, and was able to convince not only him to consider Insight's money, but also convince the partners at Insight to invest in what was at one point considered a spam blaster, to eventually be a portfolio company that got acquired ultimately by Salesforce for a few $1 billion.
Wow.
And what it took to actually get that done was no dissimilar to what it took to win Ivy League championships and the 400 and 500 and set school records, which was a lot of hard work, a lot of reps, a lot of doing the appropriate diligence, studying of the actual categories of investing in. In the case of track, the technique around what it actually means to have proper sprint form, practicing how to get out of your blocks, being prepared when it's the biggest moment at a championship meet, and focusing and showing up. No dissimilar to if you're actually presenting a company to a set of partners to actually convince them to actually invest in this company. One of my friends fortunately passed away during COVID. Is a guy by the name of Trevor Moad, who had this whole concept called neutral thinking. what he also called non-negative thinking, is having a mindset around looking at things from a pure notion of objectivity, where if you look at things from a negative standpoint, first off, there's data that suggests that negativity has a 7x negative impact on output relative to non-negative thinking. And even the articulation of negative thoughts out loud, that has a 10x multiplier effect. So if you actually just walk around saying negative things, you have a 70x potential impact on not getting the outcome you want than if you were to be neutral.
Right.
And so if you think
Not
about
even be positive, just be
neutral.
Got it.
He used to call being positive is almost the equivalent of like, that's like advanced AP calculus. Like, no, let's just stick to something basic like algebra.
Right.
Where just not saying, he used to say this dumb shit out loud, he used to say to a lot of the athletes in the locker room, is going to impact their individual performance, but also team performance. Because if you think about, if you actually say negative thoughts out loud, they can affect your fellow team member.
Right.
So you could have this whole dynamic where teams have these downward spirals where one individual can be on the field if, say, you're down several points at a football game, and then everyone else starts feeling the same thing. Which negative thoughts can be like, "Oh, we'll never win. We're getting our ass kicked. Like this game is just over." You say that, then it is over.
Right.
Versus neutral thinking is saying something from a standpoint of objectivity, where it's okay. We may not be playing our best right now, but to win, we have to get our mind in the game. We have to react to our opponent's method of attack. Like, it's being able to learn the facts that are at play and then adapt accordingly. And it's tough to do in practice, but the other thing he used to always say is it takes what it takes. If you want to win, if you want us to see success in life, life doesn't care if you're having a bad day. Life doesn't care that, oh, it may be rainy outside and the odds may be against you or whatever it is. Like, those are just the facts of life.
Right.
And it's up to you, based on the cards that are dealt to you, how do you react to get the outcome you want? And
I like completely believe this. Like, I'm completely on board with this methodology and thought process, and it's actually part of the methodology that I've created for venture-backed teams. And how I think of it is, it's great teams that win championships create momentum. They create momentum in the season. They create momentum in games. If you ever see a game and they're not doing well, they'll call a timeout.
Yes.
Right? So they can get their momentum back.
Yes.
And venture-backed teams are no different. All the high performance of individuals and high performance of the team, behaviors are the exact same.
Yes.
Right? They're doing different things,
Yes.
right? But the behaviors are exact same. I get teams on a cadence. And the cadence is annual session. And in that annual session, we do what we were just talking about, is what's working.
Yes.
Let's celebrate our wins.
Yes.
Right? Because everything that we do in venture and every little small aspect of what we're doing is trying to figure out things that work so we can put capital to them to multiply them.
Yes.
Right? So it's an ongoing learning discovery loop. What's working, what's not working. What's not working, we have to be honest with ourselves as when we fail.
Yes.
Like, when you're on the football team and you drop a pass, everybody sees it. It's transparent. You can't hide it, right? Teams that hide things grow slowly. And so I like to pull everything out. What's not working, let's get honest, let's get transparent. But then let's flip that. If we don't know who we're actually selling to, if we don't know our product market fit right now, or don't have a roadmap or a console, whatever thing that we have going on wrong, flip it into like fixing that and building that.
Figure it out.
Right?
Yes.
Right? So now we know what's working. Now we know what we're going to actually build and work towards. And I think that's super important in teams. And the cadence is super important, that we do that annually.
Yes.
And then we do it every quarter. So every quarter we come back, what's working, what's not working, discuss it, let everybody be heard, and then you build OKRs or whatever methodology you want to use for goal planning.
Yes.
But that cadence, I think, is really important and missed in teams. And that cadence creates momentum, and that momentum creates growth. And that's what we're trying to achieve.
And the interesting thing, go down from annual to quarterly to monthly to weekly. There also is the daily, and then the hourly, and then the minute by minute, the second by second. When you go to the second by second, these where you get to the point of like thoughts. You go to the things that are rolling through your head that compile upon themselves in a manner that if your thoughts are ones that aren't governed the right way, that are fueled by negativity, that are in absence of objectivity, then that's where, before you know it, it starts showing itself up in the daily rhythm, the weekly rhythm, the monthly rhythm, the quarterly rhythm. And so the things that you can be doing moment by moment to optimize performance, it's all about mindset. It's all about the perspective you have towards what it is to actually achieve success. And the thing that I loved about what Trevor was able to articulate with some of these simple tools, which is just like, think from an angle of just non-negatives. Don't be negative. Don't say things that are going to count you out of whatever it is that it will dictate success. And then focus on what matters to actually achieve success. Create that rhythm and adhere to it.
Yeah.
Like, that's what a lot of the best performers in any field do.
Right.
It's tough, but that's what it takes.
Yep.
And so the one thing I really try to just coach myself personally on, or actually live to, from a personal standpoint, but also coach my founders, people around me, and we also kind of convene dinners. Michael Johnson, good friend, former, sprinter, Olympian, is this whole concept of how do you have this performance mindset continually in life, because it's so powerful once you think from that standpoint. And we all have those days where the negativity consumes us. You're not feeling your 100% best, but it's being aware of when those moments happen or what triggers those moments, and how can you respond real time in a manner to diffuse those. So, something that Trevor and I did before he passed was go through a process of almost mental reprogramming. So thinking about those moments by which negativity will consume our thoughts, or impediments towards those objectives we want to see in some facet of professional or personal life, and then write down when those moments happen objectively, how should we handle those things. And so what happens is when you actually go through this process of thinking through moments where negativity could be triggered and impediments are arising real time, but what can you do to diffuse those, you kind of create this mental reprogramming. So when they do happen, you realize, okay, like, I shouldn't be thinking this way, because objectively what I need to do is A, B, and C.
Right.
And it's those exercises, which he's done with a number of elite athletes, from likes of Russell Wilson to Alabama with Coach Saban. It's just incredibly effective.
Yeah, I find that really interesting. And I think it's easy for people to go to the negative or program yourself into the negative.
It's very easy.
To think neutral, I think I like that, because that gives you the first step.
Yes.
Let's get there first.
Yes.
And
then get to the neutral, and then look at what do you need to do to actually achieve your goal,
right,
and then take it step by step.
Yeah.
Objectively. And at some point you may realize, like, oh, the steps I need to take are very long and they're never ending.
Right.
And sometimes having that objective perspective may give you the realization, like, you know what? I don't want to do this, actually. Like,
Right.
If this is what it's going to take to actually achieve this goal and this outcome,
Yeah.
I don't want to do it, so I'm out. And that's okay. That is okay.
That is okay. You've been investing for a really long time, and I'm sure you've dialed in over the years, but what is it that you look for in founders when you're making an investment?
I look for authenticity, transparency. What you see is what you get. It's surprising where a lot of times you'll do a first pitch and you can tell when someone's just putting on a show and not truly being themselves. I look for someone that is mission driven, that is just almost borderline psychotic around going after an opportunity and trying to create, because this is a tough road being a founder, and the odds are against you, and you gotta will success into existence oftentimes, and if you're back against the wall, just never give up, and again, do what it takes to achieve success. I look for just prior journeys where if you kind of draw the trend line where they are right now and why they're starting this company, it just like it makes sense, and they're uniquely capable and able, and they have some unfair advantage around achieving success relative to the competition. I look at categories, obviously, that for us, given the type of fund structure we have, we're trying to invest after category defining businesses that have the opportunity to be potentially worth billions of dollars. So these are in product markets and categories that are quite massive, where a founder is looking to disrupt it in some meaningful manner based on some unique attack point that they have a nuanced understanding of. I want to find opportunities that are, dare I say, not pedestrian. I look for things that are fundamentally breakthrough in terms of vision and just rethinking the way the world operates, the way either business is done or individuals and consumers entertain themselves in a manner that's inspiring. And lastly, I try to find ways in which I can add help. I want to be able to be an accelerator along with Upfront in terms of our platform capabilities to not only add value with regards to capital, but be there for strategic guidance and value where 1 + 1 equals far more than 2. And if that's not the case, then sometimes you wonder, like, why are we here? We're not really kind of carrying our weight. And that's what makes the job truly exciting, is that you're just helping, you're augmenting the team, and you're doing it from more than just an investor perspective, but you are a true partner, and that's why I do this job. It makes it fun. You just came out with a book, right?
Yeah, so it's a book.
Yeah. So tell me about that. I mean, like, what inspired you to actually, write the book? It's a very, very, very long process and investment of time to do so. Tell me a little bit more about it.
At the heart of it, I just want to see founders and their teams win, right? I just believe in innovation. I believe in humanity, and being in this for 25 plus years, like, there's just a lot of easy things teams could do to be successful. I believe that all teams can be successful if they're a good team.
Mm-hmm.
They can all, maybe it's not where they start, but they all can end somewhere better.
Yeah.
The book's about the 5 behaviors of high performing teams. There's a lot of what you talked about in the book, individual performance, but then how do you build a team that's high performing? And it also gets into that cadence and how to get that momentum as a team.
Yeah. And
it's specifically geared and focused around venture-backed companies.
Really?
Because I believe venture-backed companies are very unique, and it's different when you're in a company like that than it is larger companies or companies that are doing things that have been done before.
Yeah.
Venture-backed companies are companies that are doing things that have never been done before, and they're at great odds.
Yes.
Final question. And so here's the scenario. You're trapped on a desert island the rest of your life. It's a tropical island, so it's nice. You have plenty of food, plenty of water.
Yeah.
The only thing that you don't have is a lot of entertainment. However, you found an old 80s boombox with endless batteries.
80s boombox, endless batteries.
Right? But you only can choose one album to bring with you for the rest of your life.
One album for the rest of my life? My God.
What are you going to listen to?
For the rest of my life?
Yes. One album.
It sounds like torture. Whatever the album is, you're going to hate. It's funny. I oddly enough, a iteration of this question was asked this past weekend amongst my friend group, and I initially said a weird answer that I'm not going to say right now. It's like I thought about the question too literally or too seriously, because like literally no other music you're going to ever listen to outside of this album. I'd say most likely would probably be reggae music.
Which reggae band?
I mean, Bob Marley. It's not bad to be able to listen to. So you're on a tropical island, probably themed appropriately. And so,
I think you're right.
And so if you think about for the rest of your life, all you're listening to is some good Bob Marley, and it's just kind of playing in the background constantly. Like it's not gonna irritate you. You're like, this is kind of on theme versus I can imagine any other music is just gonna be like, it's not gonna blend into the actual environment, and it'll be irritating, and it'll probably feel like torture.
I'm with you. I don't think I've ever got sick of Bob Marley, but I listen to a lot of bands, and I get I do get sick and burn out the albums because I like them so much.
Yeah, so you
I've
got.
never burnt out Bob Marley ever.
Yeah, it's funny when we actually had this initial question this weekend. I initially said classical music, and people like, you're weird. But I was like, I'm trying to think of like ambient music where I'm not gonna get annoyed by.
Right.
I realizing I probably don't want classical, but it would be reggae. It would be probably Bob Marley.
That's a good answer.
Yeah, especially.
I think right now, I think I'm going to keep that answer for myself as well. All right.
Cool. All right.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
It was
It was a fun drive.
It was a fun drive. Performance mindset is just hypercritical with regards to anything. Oh, it's interesting because actually my buddy lives up here.
Oh, really?
My buddy.
Well,
this is funny.
We're going to surprise you.
Serendipitous. Well, I don't want to blow him up. Yep.
And creativity kind of combined.
Yep.
I played hockey and...
Okay.
Oh, we did that wrong. We need to do that one more time. Sorry.